Hi, and welcome to the Outquisitions podcast, where we spotlight industry leaders redefining success. The goal of each episode of the podcast is to uncover their stories, their strategies, and insights to inspire, inform, and really elevate your own journey. So let's dive into today's conversation with yet another super inspiring guest. If you want to listen to a really interesting talk, then stay tuned. Bryn, thanks so much for coming onto the podcast. Yeah, lots of energy here. And to kick things off, could you share a little bit about yourself? Quick presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Bryn Lottig, and I am an advocate for transformative learning. I live in northern Wisconsin, but have worked within the public education framework for a number of years and was an educator for a very long time, working with students, teaching character development through adventure. So using a high ropes course or a challenge course to teach personal development skills, 21st century skills, things like communication when I put participants in a canoe together, and problem solving skills when they have to navigate through the woods. This summer, I took graduate students from the University of Wisconsin on a 15-day backpacking trip in the Bighorn Mountains in Wyoming. And the whole time, yes, we're looking at backcountry travel, wilderness travel skills, but we're also looking at how to develop them as an educator, how to connect with them, how to connect with yourself, how to connect with others, how to connect with nature to make you a more effective and collaborative team member, facilitator, educator, human being.
Yeah, better human being. Right. Okay, great. Character development through adventure. It's got my attention. Can you expand on this?
Yes. So a lot of times with youth, what we're seeing is that their character development or their social emotional learning isn't being developed as thoroughly throughout the schools as perhaps it used to be, or things are just getting denied in favor of one-to-one technology instead of working on academic skills. After COVID, a lot of educators are really focused on learning loss and making sure that academic test scores are performing at levels that they have started to drop. And the thing is that students are really feeling disconnected from themselves and from each other. There's a big mental health crisis in the United States and really in all of the Western developed world. A lot of it having to do with increased screen time and a lack of responsibility that is being given to students. And so if you tell a student that they're deficient in something, they're going to push back. However, if they are really struggling with self-confidence and I put them on an indoor climbing wall and we're practicing on what look like climbing skills, okay, we're working on upper body strength. We're working on like identifying what the next move is, or maybe stringing together a couple of moves. Okay, let's do a 3-move series. So one hand, one foot, another hand. And really, they think we're working on climbing skills, but when they get down off of the wall and they unhook from their equipment and we talk about what happened, what they're really working on is problem solving and self-confidence and really intrinsic motivation. Okay, what is your goal? And they start doing goal setting, and that is motivating them the next time that they do it. And the more they do hard things, the more they see they can do hard things, the stronger that muscle gets, whether they're on the climbing wall or completing a math test.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, really interesting. Okay. Now, what's what's your personal mission, and how did it start? What was the igniter, let's say?
Yeah, absolutely. So my personal mission is to democratize access to experiential education or learning by doing. And research has shown that students learn faster through hands-on experiences than they do from lectures or rote memorization. However, a lot of the places that are using that experiential education are not always the places where the students need it the most. And I have made that my personal mission in that I grew up with a very adverse childhood. I don't always look it, but I grew up in a substance abuse home, and statistically, the children of alcoholics are 2 to 4 times more likely to become addicted or use substances as well. And breaking generational cycles for me, I attribute that to the opportunities that I had to connect with myself, with others, and with nature in the outdoors, learning experientially, where I was able to take those experiences, connect them to other areas of my life, and make an intentional plan moving forward that helped to break some of those autopilot behaviors and reactions, and teaching myself how I can do hard things and I can survive hard situations and I get to choose my own path is really something that I have benefited from and has caused me to want to be not only an educator, but an educator of educators.
Right, right. Okay. So, how are you currently doing it? What's how the mission is to democratize access of learning by doing. What's the plan? How are you going to do so?
Well, in addition to my own teaching, I have written a book and I have done a TED Talk. So my book is titled No Child Left Inside, and it is available on Amazon in an e-reader, printed format, as well as this summer I recorded it myself via Audible. So the Audible version came out in August. And through writing all of my thoughts and lessons and learnings down, I can reach more educators. I am a part of a couple of different groups that are doing even book studies, and then I go and do professional development. As a speaker, I have started giving keynotes and workshops, doing continuing education for educators, but also starting to look at corporate workplace and corporate wellness and how to bring these collaborative leadership skills to the boardroom and not just the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. So you help educators in the US, Northern America, let's say only, or globally?
Absolutely globally. So
Oh,
I also co-founded an ed tech platform that is utilized in 133 different countries. And then my book has made it onto the national bestseller list in 5 different countries as well. So
congrats.
thank you.
Beautiful.
I definitely want to broaden my impact, and that's the beauty of technology. I mean, you're not in northern Wisconsin yourself, and yet through technology we can reach so many more people. And I just think that if we continue to use those platforms to level up our collective intelligence, we'll go
Mhm.
farther.
Yeah. So, as one of the leaders, if you're in your industry, how do you see the next 5 to 10 years go? As you've said, lots of challenges right now in the
Oh,
West.
friend.
Lots of challenges. So, yeah, how do you see the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I mean, considering the things that happened in the United States last week, I think that there are so many challenges that we might not even be able to identify at this time. but that there is going to be a reckoning in the next 5 to 10 years. And I sincerely believe that education itself won't look the same in 5 to 10 years as it does today. I think that we've seen, pre-COVID, there were trends that really were cracked open, and we were able to shine a microscope on things that weren't working before the pandemic. And now it is time to address those things. And I think globally we see that people love working from home. Nobody wants to go back to the workplace. And I think that is going to translate similarly into formal education. And how we choose to do that at the corporate level will then affect how we do that at an educational level, all the way from K-12 into secondary schools as well.
And you help both, right?
Yes.
You help those institutions, but also in also the corporate world. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. In terms of the leadership, I mean, what are some leadership trends, let's say, that you can notice, especially in the corporate market? I don't know if that question makes sense. Can you do something out of this?
I will pull something out of this, and then we'll check and see if my answer makes sense to what your question was.
Right.
Yes, leadership is something that is really challenging, and it is not always naturally developed. It is something that we have to work very intentionally at cultivating within ourselves, within the individuals that we work with. So be it our students or even young people that we are mentoring. This next generation of employees in the workforce, people are saying all the time that they don't have the attention that they used to have. They're not as loyal to companies as they were to their previous generations. People aren't staying at institutions for 25, 30, 50 years anymore. And so how do we cultivate leadership skills that aren't toxic, that are really speaking to what this next generation feels like they need for that sense of belonging, and then that sense of loyalty to bring the passion and the energy that we know they have, that the older generations are starting to phase out. And so be that in education or in the up and coming workforce, collaborative leadership is absolutely essential to develop in individuals, because it's not being done naturally. And collaborative leadership is really what I work to develop in the folks that I work with.
Right. Okay. Yeah, this good answer. Yeah, it was quite a difficult question, but great answer. Yeah, so thank you. Do you have a success story, a specific success story that you might share, or not?
So I shared this in one of my keynotes recently.
Okay.
And so I had a student that came from a really traumatic, she came to me after a really traumatic event. She was in a car accident with family members, and since returning to school had been very withdrawn, very despondent. And their school came to me, and we have an outdoor challenge course. We have these beautiful cabins in the woods, and we provide amazing food. And it's a fully immersive retreat for these middle school and high school students. And what I like about this retreat style is it really levels the playing field. And so a lot of adolescents are struggling with identity, and when they are in their same school or environment, they tend to embrace that. But if we pull them out of that environment and put them in a whole new place, it levels the playing field. And so after a few days of very carefully curated activities where I challenge the group to develop their understanding of themselves and then how they interact with one another, more increasing problem-solving initiatives throughout. And then I take them out and I ask them to go on the challenge course. And the challenge course is like telephone poles up in the woods, and they have to climb and traverse and do all kinds of obstacles. Well, this girl who had been super like withdrawn and sort of just encapsulated in her own experience, the rest of the team was her belay team. And so they're attached to her with a rope and they are in charge of her safety. And she climbed to the top of a 30-foot telephone pole, stood up on top, and did this giant leap just into like thin air. And her peers caught her and successfully lowered her down. And at the end, her peers were so excited. They weren't the ones who performed this really cool thing, but yet they celebrated her and her achievement. And she looked up at me and she was like, "Miss Bryn, I didn't think that I wanted to do it. I didn't think I could do it. And then I did it. And I showed myself how strong I really am." And a lot of her peers couldn't complete the challenge, either physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever. She was one of the only ones in her whole group that actually did it. And she was just beaming. And I hadn't seen that out of her the entire time that they had been with me. And those moments are just a micro of what I want to be able to do with individuals, on an even larger scale.
Yeah, that's a success, definitely. What big projects or goals are you currently working on, if there's any?
Yeah. I think a lot of, I'm coming off the heels of publishing my book, and I think that there's more potential for additional book ideas in the future. However, I'm still sort of recovering from the flurry of that last one. Right now, I am loving speaking, doing keynotes, workshops, professional development, even emceeing events, where these events, they're bringing people together, but there's not always like a connective element of it. That I love showing up and playing games with people and teaching them how to connect to themselves and one another and bringing that continuity to an event. So emceeing is sort of this new avenue for me to do some of the things that I have done in other places. And I love podcasts whenever I can.
Yeah. How was the process for writing a book? I mean, I guess it's quite a huge investment in many regards. How was it for you? Any insights for anyone wanting to write a book, right?
So it was absolutely wild. And I went from sort of speaking the idea aloud to having a book in my hands in less than 2.5 years. And there are people who can do it faster, and there are people who take an entire lifetime to write one thing. The most, I think, interesting thing that surprised me the most was that if you ever write a book, before you publish it, read it aloud, cover to cover.
Wow.
Because I didn't. The writing process isn't always linear. And I was so familiar with the content that I would skim in my head. But when I recorded the audiobook, I had to read it word for word aloud from one cover to the next. And I was like, oh, that's a run-on sentence. Like I don't have enough air in my lungs to read that. Or I was like, oh, that sounds different out loud than how I meant it in my head.
Right.
And so that process was very surprising and eye-opening. And I wish I would have read it from cover to cover before I had actually put it out into the world. But
nice.
That being said, it's just an opportunity for me to write a next edition
Yeah,
or
definitely. Yeah, that's a great insight, actually. Yeah. Okay. Last question for you.
okay.
What's one piece of advice that you would give to other leaders in your industry?
Mm, just go do the thing. Um, whatever it is, go and do it and fail forward, fail fast, but action is better than perfection. There are so many really gifted and talented and intuitive um, leaders out there, and they second guess themselves. And I think that they are worried about what other people will think, or imposter syndrome, or they want to make sure that all of the T's are crossed and I's are dotted before they will do a thing. And just go and do it imperfectly and authentically, and just do it, because the world needs more authentic leadership, and just go do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a question for you, which is out of scope. But I'm really curious on your take on this question. So, being authentic, obviously it's great to be authentic. Now, of course, any leaders, they also need to evolve, right? And upskill themselves. And sometimes, a leader 30 years from now, let's say, or 20 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
is almost not the same person, right? Because he evolved. What's the place of authenticity within this evolution, if that makes any sense? Do you know what I mean? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, find a coach, find a mentor,
Mm,
and like, also, like, maybe be vulnerable with those above you and coach and mentor those below you. But always, like, find somebody who can help you level up, and then bring somebody along with you too.
mm,
And that has been something that has been so important for me, is to find somebody who's just a little bit farther in their career that I can learn from, so that I don't have to make the same mistakes, that they can help me level up my career, my intelligence, but then I'm also coaching and mentoring and bringing somebody from behind me as well. And I think that that helps, so that if you're worried about your own personal growth being too public, make sure that it happens within your coaches and your mentors, that
mm.
they can help protect you. And if it's external or internal or whatever, but they can reassure you that you're not the first person to make this mistake. And but then always give back by bringing somebody else, maybe younger or less farther in their career, along with you, so that you're continuing to pass on that knowledge and that
Right,
information.
right, right. Okay, well, thank you. If anyone is listening and really wants to get in touch with you because they love your energy, um, where can listeners connect with you?
Yeah, so
How
my
to do so?
website is brynlottig.com. I'm on all of the socials, including LinkedIn. Bryn Lottig, BrynLottig. And I would love to connect. My book is on all of the Amazon platforms, as well as via my website.
Beautiful. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.